signing us up for unemployment benefits.
Unemployment? Oh, Dee, that's for deadbeats. Come on, we got a golden opportunity here.
Oh, look, we qualified.
Really, how much?
$400 a week.
400? That's more than we made at the bar.
I know.
Welcome to the Night Pod Cometh, where we talk about the legendary FXX show. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I am Jamie G, Esquire the Fifth, and I've only ever been on the welfare store for work purposes. I'm here with the Magnum Mills and the Soupdeucer to talk about Dennis and Dee Go on Welfare. Guys, tonight I decided to open up a bottle of vintage and sip on a beautiful, beautiful red blend.
Thank you for that beautiful introduction, sir. I am Magnum Mills, and I have to say that Just a Friend really holds up very, very well. And I am drinking just a Coors Light, but it's all that it needs to be, just like the Night Pod Cometh. Thank you for checking us out. Find us wherever you get your pods, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the good ones. We're there, the Googles and the whatnot, on social media at Night Pod Cometh. You can find our YouTube channel by searching for Night Pod Cometh, or just go to joeblowfootballshow.com. If you have about 7 to 8 seconds to spare, please just comment, rate, like, follow, subscribe. Just do one. If you do them all, you are the champion of the sun. But if you do one, that's all we ask, because it helps people find the show. We greatly appreciate it. Soupdeucer, how you living and what you drinking?
You know what, man? I'm living pretty good because, oh, baby, you got what I need, man. You got what I need. So does this fucking blue ribbon right here, man. PBRs for me today, as usual, my usual pounder, man. And yeah, we're gonna talk about some welfare, man. We're gonna talk about some welfare, and I don't know how I think this thing varies from state to state, but the way they did it, let's get into it. Fuck it. I'm not gonna fucking spoil anything.
And because it's sunny, you never know. We could also be drinking the same wine as Jamie G, but in a can, because, you know, pretty easy to drink the wine out of the can. No one knows.
You're not supposed to tell nobody that.
Secret.
Cracking a can.
Guys, please be aware that this is a full-on spoiler show. Every single thing associated with Sunny, all episodes, podcasts, interviews, everything, all right? It's all in play here. This is your first and really your only warning.
That's what she said. And like Charlie Day said,
let's do this thing.
This is season 2, episode 3, the 10th overall episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, titled Dennis and Dee Go on Welfare. Original air date was July 6, 2006. This episode was directed by Dan Attias. He has directed every episode of season 2 except Charlie Gets Crippled. Rob McElhenney, Charlie Day, and Glenn Howerton all get a story by credit here, while Rob McElhenney gets the sole credit for the teleplay. The guest stars include Joanna Sanchez as Maria, Eddie Pepitone as Tony, and Aisha Hines as caseworker. The short plot synopsis is Dennis and Dee quit their jobs and concoct a plan to get welfare benefits so they can pursue their unrealistic goals and dreams.
Before we start to break this baby down, anything else about this episode we should mention?
I do want to point out that we actually do see Dee and Dennis's drug dealer again. He's the guy who sells them an assault rifle in Gun Fever 2, Still Hot in season 9. And we will eventually get a reboot of sorts for this episode in season 11's Frank Falls Out the Window, which, spoiler alert, we are going to cover next time on the Night Pod Cometh.
Well, we're going to go through the episode in detail, but before we do, let's give our overall thoughts on Dennis and Dee Go on Welfare. Mills, go ahead, take a break, get a big old sip here, because I'm gonna articulate. This is an absolute winner for me. There were so many. The overall plot was hilarious. Okay, just that in and of itself, and with all characters, right? And in classic Sunny style, it goes ahead and it talks about something that's, you know, so bad and such a problem, but it does it while making a mockery and having fun with it. Only this show can really do it the way they do. It's awesome. But there's so many little things in here, little details that just catapult this into probably one of my favorite episodes, period. And I know there's a bunch of them out there. That's how good this one is. Enjoyed rewatching this. I will always sign up for watching Dennis and Dee Go on Welfare.
There are so many memorable parts of this episode. It is definitely an episode where you can first see where the show becomes what it is with the addition of Danny DeVito 2 episodes ago, and they just banged through season 2. It's got great energy. My only real complaint is that if you think about it at all, the plot falls apart, and it mostly has to do with timing as opposed to the actual realities of welfare, what have you, although that's part of the timing. But still, this maybe the most memeable moment in the show's history, like, oh, did somebody get addicted to crack, is from this episode. The whole idea of the fact that at this time still a network let them, let writers make their main characters get addicted to crack. And the gang actually talks about this on their podcast. The Sunny podcast about this episode is very interesting. You should check it out. And this was the first episode where they actually got blowback, where the network guys were like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't, have your characters smoke to crack or whatever. I feel like it's worth it, but I do feel like they overpaid. And Soup, overall thoughts on Dennis and Dee Go on welfare?
No, I mean, I think it's a great fucking pivotal episode, man. Like you said, it kind of like launched it into the next phase, and I think a show like this needs to keep doing, as it has been doing, shit like that to kind of keep pushing an envelope or keep going up that next step to keep it going for what it is, man. So yeah, important. Not promoting smoking crack or anything by any means, but to involve something like that in a show like this, I think is and they made it fucking funny as hell.
Crack is kind of funny in this, in the right hands, anything is funny, right? That's the skill of comedy. In the right hands, anything can be funny.
Exactly.
And that's what I meant when I said, this show throughout its tenure, it's become legendary for its ability to take such a huge, massive, horrible thing or problem in our society and highlight just how horrible it is, but do it through the eyes of these 4 characters, and it's gold, and it's funny, and it hits. Of course, we don't ever want anybody to smoke crack or be addicted or take advantage of the system or any of the horrible things that the gang does in this episode, or really any of the other episodes. But it's so funny the way they do that. For me, it's the little things in this one that just push it to a whole new stratosphere of awesome. Mills, go ahead, baby. Bring us into this one, and maybe we'll bump into each other here at the welfare store. You never know.
I love that they call it the welfare store. I like that you did the little things like Bush, but to push it like salt and pepper. You've almost got me there. I'm almost ready to get into this. But one more shout out to the Always Sunny podcast. They actually pointed out, because they ironically started the podcast during the COVID thing. And when they went to do this episode, they pointed out that at the same time they were recording the episode, about 20 years later, or more like 15 years later, excuse me, but it was actually beneficial for somebody, or some people, I should say, groups of people, depending on what you make, to stay on welfare as opposed to go back to work because of the increased COVID benefits. So it's kind of ironic that Sunny has managed to stay this relevant for this long. And, I guess that's good writing. It just brings it back around. And we're going to not bump into each other at the welfare store. We're going to go to Patty's Pub, where at 4:30 p.m. on a Wednesday, Frank is trying to get Dennis and Dee to lay some grout in the bar, but they refuse. Frank says fine. He, Mac, and Charlie can run the bar. Dennis and Dee leave because they have goals and aspirations outside of Patty's. And, how good is it when they walk out and they're like,
don't worry about us, Mac. We'll be just fine.
Smash cut to Dennis and Dee Go on welfare. I think this is a top tier, kind of smash cut to the title card, and probably the best one they had to date on the show. Had? I have to say that when you say like that they had. That feels like correct English, but still, I don't like when you have to say
the same words in a row is weird. Yeah.
It's a thing. Like American English is for shit like that. Mm-hmm. Any thoughts on the cold open here? Can you moving pool tables, or?
You're spot on, and that transition was fantastic. I also thought it was just, there's some good kind of one-liners in here too, man. I mean, it just kind of sets the stage really nice. The gang, they're just so good at that kind of opening scenes.
Yeah, it's the beginning of the hands to the eyes joint, which comes back around a couple times in the episode, where Dennis is mocking Mac like, "Oh, my daddy used to give hot shots to prostitutes," which is kind of cutting. And yeah, I mean, they have dreams and aspirations, but I'm really not, sure how cool it is. And I just want to point out that this is pre-Breaking Bad. So Mac, having a meth dealer for a father isn't nearly as cool as it was like post Walter White. And Lane
sure.
Grout sucks. Lane Grout sucks also.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the cold open or whatever for this up until the title card really sets the whole stage for the, it gives you the basic idea of what's going to happen, and they're going to take it into some different places, but it all kind of like circles back and everything else. I mean, it's just put together very well.
After the opening credits, Dee is attempting to sign herself and Dennis up for unemployment. While they wait for their application to be processed, they talk about possibly pursuing their dreams. But it turns out that they qualify for $400 a week each, which is more than they made at the bar. New plan. They're going to take the unemployment. After all, that's what it's there for. They'll use that time to really work on themselves so they can achieve their goals. And oddly enough, this is still relevant in 2023 because the last time the federal minimum wage was raised was back in 2009, was raised to $7.25, which is still where it's at today. I don't know, man. What do you think happens first? They're going to raise the federal minimum wage again, or the last episode of Sunny airs?
Last episode of Sunny airs.
Fuck,
Probably.
I think you're right.
It's not what I want.
It's become a state issue, really, to a certain extent. Yeah, so probably, yes, you're right. Sunny. Oh, you know what? Fuck it. Sunny forever, dude. Sunny forever and ever and ever. They're going to go on for 60 years.
Yeah, man, dude, I don't know, man. I didn't even know what minimum wage was. So is that seriously what it is still, man? That can't be livable.
Yes, it is. It still is.
There's no way you can afford anything on that. Like,
you cannot. There's basically no major city where you could work 40 hours or even 37 and a half or what have you. Yeah, so not the greatest, but I do. Any kind of just overall thoughts on the way that they kind of Dennis and Dee react to each other here, where Dennis kind of does the whole like, oh, if it wasn't how it is now, I would tell you you're pathetic, but now we're doing the thing, and just how quickly they flip on it. Like as soon as they see how much money they get, they're like, you know what, our morals not so fast and tight.
You gotta love the new Dennis, man. And it's I mean, come on, dude, how great is it that he's like the new Dennis, it's not his place to kill your pipe dreams, right? I mean, it's just such a backhanded like comment. Just Dennis, it's just Dennis, man. This is a big win for me. Dee and Dennis pairing up is usually good. It's a fun ride. You get the feeling right away this one's gonna hit.
Yeah, I would say whatever you regard as far as the overall rating of this episode and the overall pantheon, this is a top tier Dennis and Dee team up. Because they can be hit or miss and you don't get them as much. I would say this is definitely a top tier D&D. But back at Patty's, we don't have D&D. We have Charlie and Mac who have finished the grout, the tile, but they're struggling to move the pool table back. Perhaps they should have, taken the balls out first, similar to if you're going to use a dresser, probably take the drawers out first. They're frustrated, and Frank doesn't help matters because he comes out of the office and tries to show them some tough love. It's a father figure. Frank goes back into his office, and Charlie looks at Mac and says,
I don't want a father figure.
Do we just need to make a public service announcement to remind people how to lift heavy things? The answer is pay someone else to lift them.
That is the correct answer.
That is the best and the only answer to lifting heavy things. You get professional people who know what the fuck they're doing and have them do it. Because otherwise, you just lift with your back, you just snap it up, you lift, you jerk, and you spend the rest of your life at the chiropractor.
Yeah, you're not really supposed to lift with your back either. I think you're supposed to use the legs, I think is what I heard. But also, I mean, if you're making fucking minimum wage, you can barely afford to eat. You're probably homeless, and you're going to pay somebody to do work for you? I don't see it happening, man. That's for rich folks.
I mean, that could even come back around in this episode, that concept. I mean, and I think there's definitely a little bit of both some plot stuff here where Frank says he has important business in the back office. And my guess is that is signing up for that the bank account in Charlie's name so he can hide the money. And the whole father figure thing, definitely some irony because they spent about the next 10 years of the show debating secretly whether or not Frank is Charlie's dad, and it's kind of the first time it's teased here. So again, that scene was possibly more complex than that, but something that's not complex is Dennis and Dee on welfare. It's 1:00 in the afternoon, and they're just drinking beers on a stoop in South Philly, listening to the classic song Just a Friend by Biz Markie. Mac rolls up, and they tell Mac that unemployment is going great. Dennis is going to become a veterinarian, and he is going to be on Broadway. Mac asks him to come back to the bar because he's working his ass off. Dennis and Dee mock him, and Mac warns them that unemployment will run out. But that's okay. When it runs out, they're just going to go on welfare. Mac protests, but Dennis just cranks up the volume on the boombox, and they ignore him.
Oh, baby.
Got what I need. Yeah, Bismarck, shout out Bismarck, dude. That shit holds up extremely well. And in the reboot here, they use Gone Till November. And, Wyclef also good, but Wyclef kind of not the greatest person with the Haiti stuff, but Bismarcky, very good person and very good song.
Dennis literally has the one jean pant leg rolled up here. He's fully embraced life on the stoop, sipping 40s and listening to
Dee is a
to
Jesus
tunes.
piece.
Dude, yes. This is the little detail here. It's amazing. And who doesn't want to be sitting out on the stoop having a couple cold ones, man?
And again, you get the same, they do the eyes on the, crying meme joint. Oh, no, I don't know how to take advantage of government programs. That's actually, I guess, a fairly sick burn, especially where you see Dennis and Dee end up later in the episode. After that, we're back at Patty's, and Frank is having Charlie sign some papers. Frank is opening a bank account in Charlie's name to hide some of his money from his whore wife. Frank tells Charlie that he'll be rewarded as long as he doesn't touch the money. Mac comes in and tells him about a work for welfare program. Basically, they can hire potential welfare recipients to work at Patty's, and the government will subsidize their wages. After a brief discussion of the ethics involved, Frank gives them the okay to go ahead.
I'm good. Go get us some slaves.
So funny, dude. And I got to tell you, though, when you were watching this, did you just think like, okay, how long before Charlie just like he lets up to Mac that Mac knows and they dip it? Like it like right away, I was like, oh, eventually that money's going to be spent, right? Like that.
Yeah, that's like Chekhov's money. You can't show the money in the second act and not spend the money on random strippers who may or may not have very large pimps. But the work for welfare thing is actually kind of a real thing that existed or does exist in certain places. And the idea that Charlie gets a VIG, they referred to this on the Always Sunny podcast, and they were just basically like, yeah, dude, we were watching a lot of Sopranos at the time. And Charlie Day was the only one, or actually, no, Charlie and Mac, I think both remember that VIG was short for vigorish, but Glenn Howerton didn't. And it was kind of funny. So again, thank you for listening to us. Listen to them, listen to us. It's a symbiotic thing.
Could you think of anything else for Mac, though, to be able to describe hiring these people, getting the help? It's just it's
the
so
whole
Mac,
thing
dude.
with
So
like,
bad.
you have to respect them, the plight, just the way they're all kind of dancing around the facts of like, this kind of sounds like, maybe the S word.
That just sounds like slavery with extra steps.
Ooh la la, someone's gonna get laid in college.
I don't know if I would really say that. Obviously, they're like, oh, we got some slaves and shit, but there's still money involved there, man.
The people are getting paid. Yes, the people are getting paid, and it's not as bad as they just present it in a certain way.
Indentured servants, I guess.
But I mean, through the not indentured, hopefully they should be able to get a better job if one comes available. I just like during the whole part of it, it's basically Mac and Frank parroting shit back to each other, and Charlie just keeps looking around, and whenever he talks, it just becomes very obvious that he has no idea what everyone else is talking about. And like confused, drunk Charlie is just the absolute best.
Yes.
He does sober up a bit because him and Mac have to go to the welfare store to, get their, not slaves, but they're people who are going to work for welfare. And when they're there, they're in the waiting room and they're looking at their maybe potential applicants. They go up to the counter and they ask the welfare caseworker about the work for welfare program. She doesn't seem very impressed by their inquiry, and she gives them a massive binder to review, which just contains the rules and stipulations of the program, not the Facebook or anything like that. They're not going to read it, but, Frank will.
I'm not reading it.
No, I'm not reading this
We'll
either.
get Frank to do it.
No, they took it anyway. I mean, I didn't know I wouldn't think they'd be able to leave the office.
No, that would cost. You know how much money that would have cost to print back in the
A lot of
day?
paper, dude.
That was $100. That was $100 binder, I bet. That's a ton of paper that they, like, to get that big of a binder with the. Yeah, that would be chained. That would be chained to the
nuts in there and shit. Yeah,
a couple reams for sure.
Yeah, 2 reamer. It's a 2 reamer, I bet. So
no, it's
1,000 pages, 2 reamer, 1,000 pages.
I could not stop laughing about them like walking around and Max like looking at them all, like trying to like size up their health and like is immediately making judgments based on their appearance on whether or not they would be good like physical workers.
Look at those massive thighs.
Yeah, those are good thighs. Yeah, but you're gonna have a problem with work ethic.
That's what I'm talking about, dude. You can't be saying things.
No, dude, I'm not saying that because he's black. I'm saying he's asleep in his chair. You know, like what?
Dude, so funny. It just, again, it's all the little stuff with this one that just pushes it to a point of just being an absolute classic episode.
You've probably already seen or heard a little bit of the quote, but just the idea that
you don't want to do that. You could cheat yourself out of a good slave here, man.
You could cheat yourself out of a good slave here. That Charlie just being simplistic enough that he says the quiet part out loud a little bit. And when they approach the counter, and just that whole thing where he just wants to know, like, for a Facebook, which is actually what was in college, freshmen used to get a Facebook, which was all the freshmen and have a picture in your name. And the idea was to help you meet people in your class. But ultimately, you know, upperclassmen dudes would get a hold of the Facebook, photocopy it, and then use it to skeeve on chicks because that's what all Facebooks turned into. But just seriously, just the idea that Charlie wants, like, oh, do you have anything with like their physical stats, their power, their weight? He basically wants either a baseball card or that the screen in a video game where you have to pick the character based on attributes. That's how Charlie's picking it out. So shout out the welfare store. Calling it the welfare store, that is so stupid and brilliant. I can't express how stupid and brilliant that is. It's hysterical.
There's a fine line between stupid and brilliant. Sometimes
it's stupid, brilliant. It's stribulant or strilliant or whatever.
Brupid. That didn't work as well.
That's what she said. Just like the urinal. And shout out to Aisha Hines, who plays a caseworker. I believe she does come back around in the Frank Falls Out the Window episode. So I mean, maybe, let's be honest, this is where they got the idea for the Charlie McDonough binder, right? They see this big one and they're like, oh,
is it the same binder, just decorated differently? I've got to know.
It might be.
Honestly, never returned it. I don't think they returned it. So
they, would they have? I mean, that's what they get for letting them try to walk out with it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they get, because as Mac and Charlie try to walk out with that binder, they run into Dennis and Dee, who are there to themselves apply for welfare. Their plan is to say that Dennis is a recovering crack addict who is taking care of Dee, his mentally disabled sister. The caseworker doesn't seem to be buying what they're selling, and she informs them that they'll need a doctor's report confirming Dee's medical condition and a blood test confirming Dennis's crack addiction. Dennis's crack addiction. That sounds like a cool band name, maybe a Metallica song. And like, dude, there has to be rules and regulations or whatever. But how do you get a blood test for crack?
No, I think any random drug test will pop up on that, man. You know.
But what do you call a doctor? Be like, I'm going on welfare. Like, I need a crack. I've just never heard of that concept.
I need a blood test. Yeah, I don't know.
They don't drug test on welfare, I don't think, because that's been a talking point for many, many years that, oh, they should, blah, 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 blah. But I don't know that they do.
I think if you're trying to get it because I think that's more of a, you can't test me for that because, you know, I'm getting welfare and smoking crack. But it's more like, oh, I'm a crackhead and I need welfare. So he's going the opposite direction with this thing. You know?
That's true. Good point.
Yeah, and I would say the overall point is,
I mean, Dee's.
And she's mentally retarded.
Oh, most definitely.
She has her helmet on.
Kaylin Olsen, if you watch during the scene, she picks up a pen and she starts chewing on the chain and running, and then she tries to like write. It's amazing. Very subtle acting.
Gentlemen,
And you can just tell that both Howard and Asha Heads are just trying so hard not to burst out laughing. And you get the idea that they wanted to say something about welfare or whatever, but they couldn't quite settle on the message. So they kind of did it in the middle, and they basically give their thesis a little bit later on when Frank talks to the, not the slaves, but the new workers. Anything else kind of on the welfare store here?
The lady, first of all, the caseworker, talk about great facial comedy. I mean,
that's exactly what you would expect to see in a welfare store, dude.
Yeah, dude. She's just great. I mean, they cast.
That's what I mean. Do you think
that's a perfect casting?
They actually had to get blood tests, or she was just like, "Oh, I'm going to tell these people they need it because they're stupid and they'll believe it."
She just, dude, they cast a winner with her. She was the perfect lady to play that role.
She comes back again in that role. Definitely been in a bunch of stuff, so very good there. And just the idea of running into friends at the welfare store, Charlie thinks that's something that happens on the regular.
All right, let's all recognize that this is a little awkward situation between friends at the welfare store, and let's go our separate ways, okay?
And while Dennis and Dee are thwarted on their initial attempt to get welfare, they decide to double down. They're going to get some crack and smoke just a little bit, and then they'll go to see the doctor. After a extremely hysterical exchange with a drug dealer, they agree to buy 2 crack rocks. It's a 2-for-1 for $200. I mean, honestly, dude, is 1 crack rock enough?
I don't know what the going rate is, man, but it seems a little
I'm on
steep.
a list. I Googled how much is 1 crack rock, so I'm on a list now. I Googled it, and it sounded, it seems somewhere between $10 and $20, but I'm on a list now. I'm on a list.
Well, like a waiting list?
I don't know how it works these days. I'll probably subscribe to something.
They did such a great job of like trying to like, this is a civil, respectable transaction. I mean, they just nailed it, dude, with the whole thing and just not really knowing what they're getting into. And shout out to the drug dealer.
Yeah, who's the guy that played that guy, man?
He's amazing.
Pick it up down there.
Yeah, I honestly don't want to get too much more into this because this may or may not be my favorite scene of the episode. Played brilliantly all the way around, from the casual, if accidental, racism and the paying $200, the overpaying for crack. I mean, who overpays for crack? Like, the whole point was like crack is the cheaper version of cocaine, right? For $200, I didn't Google that, but I'm pretty sure they could have done better than 2 crack rocks.
Yeah,
probably.
At least that, a decent, midday.
Well, how big are the fucking rocks, dude? I mean, are we talking a boulder here, or is
Man,
are we doing Charlie Sheen 7-gram fucking rock banging, or
That sounds like a video
look at the
game.
specifics here.
I would like to play Charlie Sheen 7-gram rock banging or whatever. That sounds like a cool video game. I mean, maybe that's what Frank had to do, but apparently he did it. He got through that binder, because we're back at Patty's and we see that there are now 2 new employees, Maria and Tony. Mac and Charlie are initially thrilled, but their attitudes quickly sour when Frank wants to spend his newly freed up time with them. He wants to throw the pigskin around. He wants to play video games with them. It's like he's really trying to become their father. They ditch Frank and talk in the men's room where Maria is cleaning the urinal. They decide to ditch Frank and go out for their night on the town. They'll take just a little bit of Frank's money that he stashed in Charlie's account. After all, Charlie deserves that vig, right? Dude, Charlie pissing and then Maria getting hit. I don't. They're the worst people in the world, and I laugh my ass off every time.
When the urinal's all fucked. When you flush it, it fucking sprays.
It's everywhere. A great run. They seen it in the first scene, and it comes back around when Charlie flushes. It's already bad enough that he's pissing and kind of talking to her. I mean,
almost right in her face. I think that's great. She's like, "Do you want me to?"
And Charlie, look. If you're on YouTube, you can look behind me. Charlie, if you use proper urinal etiquette, Charlie would be over one. If you have the option, I don't know if you use urinals, but whether or not you do, if you have the option, you should always leave a urinal in between. It's the buffer.
Gotta space it out, dude.
Gotta.
This is
go every other.
The fact that he is doing that, And I don't think he's trying to assert dominance. He's just being an asshole.
Or he just doesn't even realize. I got to piss.
You're drunk, but if you're that drunk that you don't observe urinal etiquette, you're an asshole. You should always, if you have that many urinals, you should, utilize them.
One thing I will say is I fucking hate, more than most things, is an awkward bathroom situation. And if I'm already in there taking a piss and some asshole comes and stands right next to me and starts pissing, why? And then I don't know. I'm going to get into my awkward bathroom stories. We'll save that for another time. But I fucking hate an awkward bathroom situation. I've had a few of them that I really don't like. So keep that in the bank. Write that on the paper. We'll talk about it one day.
And shout out to Frank here too. He's trying so hard, and it's so funny. You go outside and toss it around a bit, dude. I mean, you gotta love Frank. It's like, what is going on here?
And there is one nice little parallel here where Mac and Charlie say they want to take just a little of Frank's money, and that's a parallel to Dee and Dennis being like, we just want to do a little bit of crack. Maybe this is all just a callback to Towley wanting to smoke just a little bit of weed.
Just get a little high.
Just get a little high.
One thing I know, man, and I'm not a crack user, but I do know this: there's no such thing as smoking a little bit of crack. Pretty sure that once you start on that, you're going to smoke a little bit more than a little bit.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what would go into your head the first time you're like, I'm going to smoke crack. I don't understand. You know what? I'm not even really trying to empathize with crack users. Don't smoke crack. Crack is whack. I'm gonna quote Whitney.
That's very bad.
Just don't. That's the easiest way. Anything else, like huff paint or something. Don't necessarily huff paint, but something that's huff avocado oil or whatever. I don't know. Whatever the kids huff these days.
Oh man, you've been doing
avocado oil. Is that a thing nowadays?
I don't know. Plantain oil. I don't know. One of them random shits. I'm sure some of it's good. I remember people used to smoke ginseng and smoke banana peels. They did.
Oh man, you know where I can score some, dude? I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try that.
Well, but I mean, honestly, maybe Mac and Charlie scored, and maybe they also took more than a little bit of money, because in the next scene they're dressed in tuxedos with top hats, and they're making it rain for what I assume to be a bunch of prostitutes. Dennis and Dee also partied pretty hard. I'm assuming they're out of crack, and they missed their doctor's appointments by not only an hour, but also a day. They feel terrible, and they don't want to feel this way anymore. Dee makes a call. Even though they're not sure that he will see them on short notice, he will. They're in luck. The drug dealer was able to meet up with them, and they get another 2 rocks of crack for $200.
You gotta love the drug dealer here too. Or like, thanks for meeting us on such short notice. It's what I do, baby. It's what I do.
It's like, where did they get his phone number? I mean, this is definitely an episode. If you think about it at all, as far as the time frame, the writing things, none of it makes sense. It doesn't really hang well. Theoretically, they were supposed to be on welfare for unemployment for a month before it ran out, at least. If you really look at it, months are supposed to pass during this episode.
But they move kind of quickly. Like there's no way this
months should literally pass. Think
Yeah.
about how long it took for Frank to read that for them to get their new work for welfare people and everything, or Frank to open a bank account and then Charlie to get an ATM card. It's never that takes a minute. So this episode should actually take place over the course of probably 2 months, I would say, maybe 2 to 3 months, and they make it feel like it takes place over the course of 2 to 3 days. So that's one of my, problems from a writing standpoint here. But, it's hard to beat Dennis being like,
Ooh, I'm freezing and I'm sweating all at once.
Again, we talked about that awesome smash cut early. You get another one here where Mac and Charlie are talking about stealing, taking the money out of Charlie's account that Frank hid. And they said just a little bit.
We'll take out just a little bit of cash.
Just a little.
Just enough you won't even notice it.
Just enough to have a quiet night out.
And they, bam, smash cut right to them in the top hats and just making it rain. And everything is, just everything about that. And, one final thing from the podcast I actually talked about. When Dennis and Dee wake up here, you hear the ringing of an alarm clock and a crow, doing the or rooster or whatever, doing the morning thing. And apparently it was a big argument because they felt that there was no alarm clock that would both do a alarm thing and a, rooster waking up thing. And this was apparently a big blowout argument. And they actually almost got into a fight again almost 20 years later over this same thing, because I think it was Howard to listen to the Sunny podcast. Dennis and Dee at this point are legitimately looking like authentic crackheads. They're somewhere in the area of the stoop where we first saw them. And Dee is kind of twitching out a little bit. She wants Dennis to buy her new headshots when he becomes a veterinarian. Mac and Charlie happen to drive by in their limo with the prostitutes, and they pull over to mock Dennis and Dee. They roll down the window, and Dennis immediately asks if they're holding, and then he asks for money. Charlie rolls the window back up, and Mac tells the driver,
Driver, we're done here.
Top 2 contender for scene of the episode for me. Just the rolling up of the window, the look of disgust on the chick's face. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see now who's looking up at Dennis. How quickly did they go from sitting on that stoop and being awesome to sitting, I'm assuming, just around the corner, but not even, just looking crackheadish, right? The idea that it was just 2 times a crack doesn't make sense. This makes a lot more sense if this did actually take place over a month or 2, but they are
probably most likely. But yeah, man,
I wouldn't let them into my house.
No, dude.
Dude, I gotta leave town for a couple hours, run some errands. Will you watch my house for me, man? Probably not the people I would want doing that, but you know,
can see them. Yeah, they were crackheads.
Dude, how great is? But I'll tell you what, dude. Like, Howerton's so perfect here, where he just looks at you.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, really?
What's going on around here?
We're putting a couple things together lately.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, are you guys holding? Holding what?
Like, all of a sudden, they've just transitioned into like full-blown drug addicts in drug culture, speaking the drug words. Like, it just, oh man, very good.
You know what I really love too? The fucking top hat. Who wears the top hat anymore, man? Mac with the top hat is fucking awesome.
I am not complaining. I definitely pitched that at some point. I was standing up in a wedding, and they were like, you have to spend all this money. And I was like, well, why can't we have like a top hat and a cane? And someone was like, if you added a monocle, you'd just be fucking Mr. Peanut. Is that what you're going for? And I was kind of like, yeah, I guess I am. Mr. Peanut, Mr. Monopoly or whatever. I guess that's what I was going for.
Yeah, the Monopoly guy, the Mr. Peanut dude. And nobody
Mr. Moneybags. Mr. Moneybags.
We've talked about monocles, I think, on the Joe Blow show and shit, man. And I was giving it a push to bring them back.
Monocle's hard, dude. I feel like it'll hurt your eye hole.
I don't think it's super convenient, you gotta
very inconvenient. That's what I'm saying. Just give me glasses with a lens in one side,
like the pocket watch. Nobody fucks with that anymore either,
It is a pain. And you know what else is a pain? When you try to get your new, not slaves, but employees to play, football with you, throw the pigskin around. And that could have gone okay for Frank when he was going to play 2-hand touch. But no, this time he decided they were going to play tackle. I mean, how else could he learn anything? You can't make him any better. It went bad, and Tony thinks that he broke something. They're sitting at the bar back in Patty's, Maria, Tony, Frank, and Frank starts talking to him, and he wonders how 2 hardworking non-drinkers like them could end up on welfare. Maria starts to understand about the vicious cycle that is poverty, but Frank gets interrupted by a phone call from the bank. Apparently, there's been some suspicious activity on his new account. I mean, kind of brutal, right? He told Mac and Charlie to play 2-hand touch, and then he plays tackle with Maria and Tony. That's kind of a dick move, right?
Little bit. And it was, part of me too is like, was he frustrated? You know what I mean? Like,
I think that was the implication, dude. I think that was the boat out there. That was the idea on the open water.
Tackler, man. Can he really?
He's the warthog, yo. He tackles like the warthog.
He is the warthog.
I bet you. I bet
he's low, sturdy, low center of gravity. Gets that good low tackle.
Yeah,
he gets leverage, dude. He gets leverage.
Fair enough.
After that, we see that Mac and Charlie's limo has made it over to 9th Street, and they're attempting to withdraw money from an ATM across the street from Gino's Steaks. They still need to pay the girls, but Frank has cut off access for Charlie to the account. They handle the situation like they handle all of their problems, by running away. Dennis and Dee are walking down an alley discussing their next move. Do they go back to work, or do they go to rehab? Charlie and Mac come up on them and they argue about money, jobs, hookers, and crack, like everyone does. Frank comes out and says that he fired the slaves. They were bringing him down. They don't even drink. There's going to be some new rules at Patty's. Dennis and Dee are now going to have to do all of Charlie's work, while Charlie is promoted to management. Mac gets dick because he's a follower and a thief. And that's the episode, fellas.
Dennis and Dee get nothing because
you are crackheads, children.
Crackheads, children. And also never call any large pimp named Hector Wallace or anybody else. Just never, when in doubt, never call the large pimp.
Yes, indeed.
And I just love the idea throughout the episode that Dennis and Dee, like, this is Dee, she got a taste of her dream by being on welfare. This was it. This was their absolute peak possible thing, is like, oh, we got welfare. This is the greatest thing that had ever happened to them.
The little thing.
It's not that great.
But isn't that like so perfect though? Because they could just kind of like, it's like that would be the best thing that would ever happen to them, right? Like, it's never gonna get that good again, kind of, right? Like,
well, think about how hard they wanted to get Frank's money, and then Charlie gets it by stealing.
All right, first of all, you two, from now on, are going to do all of Charlie's work.
No, not his.
Stop. Charlie, you got a lot of balls stealing my money. This shows leadership. I am promoting you to management.
And also the way they bring back around, finally, Mac and Charlie get the, again, the,
I'm sorry. Did you get addicted to crack? Did somebody get addicted to crack? I sweat uncontrollable.
Somebody get addicted to crack, which is maybe the most famous meme from the entire run of the show, and something I still use all the time to this date in my personal life. I mean, Dennis tries to get one back on Mac when he's like, I can't get somebody to have sex with me unless I pay for it.
Yeah,
amazing, guys.
Always pay for it. One way or another, you're paying for it, man.
You always will. And what we've got to do is pay it up for Dennis and Dee Go on welfare, because, guys, that was the episode. And before we hand out our awards, we got to look at what other people thought about this one.
Here's the deal. This episode has a rating of 9.0 on IMDb. That puts it in a 7-way tie for 17th overall amongst all Sunny episodes. That's pretty much a top 10% episode. Does that seem about right to y'all? Jamie G, I don't know, man. What do you think? Is this a top 10% episode?
I think it is. I mean, it's really good. It's hard for me to kind of find a lot about this one that I don't like. I think rewatchability is fantastic. I think it would be good to kind of let somebody who doesn't know Sunny watch this for the first one. I mean, it checks all the boxes for me. Tons of little stuff here. It's one of the worst things topic-wise that you can do, but they do it, and they do it so well. I think it is, man. I got to give it up for them.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me. I came into this thinking it was maybe one of my 10 favorite episodes, and I came out not necessarily looking down on it, but the fact that the writing doesn't match up as well. The highs of this episode are great, but if you actually think about it, it falls apart enough. And I'm only kind of knocking that because there's so many episodes of the show that are so well written. And again, all of the jokes and everything like that are really well written. But I would say it's more maybe a top 15 to 25%, maybe in that range, as opposed to a top 10%. Again, they've had like 164 episodes so far. So you're talking about, top 16 episode for that 10%. So I'd say I'm more in that, it's a top 20-ish episode. Soup, how about yourself?
I've got to give it a top Baker's dozen, a top 13. It's in there. Definitely. You know what? Fuck it, man. I'm going to give this one a top 10. This was like a pivotal episode. I think this deserves a top 10 for sure. Top 10.
We're always trying to get new people to watch the show because we absolutely love Always Sunny. And, we debate about kind of what the best episodes to show somebody who's never seen an episode of Sunny would be. Would this one be a good idea to show? I mean, Dennis and Dee Go on welfare. Is this a good one for a Sunny virgin? I think it is. I said it before. I'll say it again. I think this is a great kind of gateway episode for folks to watch. You get kind of all the characters here. kind of really hitting their stride. It's one of the best Dee and Dennis pair-ups kind of I think that the show might have ever done. You get the incredible opening. Mac and Charlie just are just, there's so much meme-worthy stuff in this one with those two guys. I mean, this is just, yes, this is a great one to show the Sunny Virgin.
Everything you said basically is spot on. I don't really have much to add that other than I would say again on the podcast. I think Howerton said that when he's talked to people, this is maybe the episode that the most folks have told him that if somebody had to watch one for the first time, this was one they would recommend. So yeah, I think it's way up there as far as what you'd want for a virgin soup, under the pale moonlight or the what do you think, man? Sunny Virgin. This is a good one?
Yeah. It is, man. I don't know. I'd throw it at a virgin for sure. I don't know if those would be the first one I would throw at a virgin, but why not? There's probably about 4 or 5 that are on that caliber, and this is one of them.
Yeah, it's still pretty early on, so this is just getting into Frank. So right. There's not a lot of, from a plot standpoint, it's not like Sunny has that many, crucial long-running plots, but it's also a very well-written show. I don't want to take that away from them, but we do have some fun trying to give alternate titles for the episode. Let's be honest here. Dennis and Dee Go on Welfare is very specific, very awesome, very epic, but we have to try anyways. Jamie G, lead us off. Do you have any alternate title for Dennis and Dee Go on Welfare?
Mac and Charlie Buy a Slave. I thought that would have been a good one, but then that was kind of my runner-up. My main one, Dennis and Dee Smoke Crack. I mean, come on. If that was the title here, I would be all over it.
I mean, technically, shouldn't it be Dennis and Dee fail to get on welfare? They get on unemployment, but they don't get on welfare. It would actually be funnier, I think, if it was just Dennis and Dee fail to go on welfare. Or, the gang, does just a little bit.
Nice. I like that one. That's actually pretty good.
Or the gang goes to the welfare store.
Welfare store.
I love that. I love the concept of, and they've done this again on the podcast, like they call it an In-N-Out burger, the hamburger store. And just the idea, like you would call a McDonald's or Burger King the hamburger store. I just love that so much.
That's kind of cool.
Like if you go to the bar, instead of going to the local bar, where are you going? I'm going to the alcohol store. But it's not really an ABC or something. It's a bar.
I think maybe just a little bit of cash and crack might be cool. Might run a little long, but
a little bit of cash and crack.
I like, a little bit of cash. A little bit of cash and crack.
That might be
a little bit of cash and crack. A little bit.
Oh, somebody's gonna make a song about it.
A little bit of cash and crack. A little bit of cash and crack. A little bit of cash and oh, sorry.
Hey, we might be onto something here.
I got caught up in the Animal House thing.
Bowling. A little bit of cash and crack.
Bowling. I mean, that's what we're doing. We're just we're doing what we gotta do for a little while till we get enough money for more crack.
That brings us to the awards portion of the program, ladies and gents. Let's start with our favorite quote or piece of dialogue from Dennis and Dee Go on Welfare. Guys, I got to go way back up to the top with Dennis here, with the new Dennis versus old Dennis.
Old Dennis would have said, Dee, your sad little acting ship sailed a decade ago. It's pathetic. But the new Dennis says that it's not my place to kill your pipe dreams. You should go
just
for
pure
it.
Gold.
It's not quite buying somebody gold, but just the line where Dee wants Dennis to buy her new headshots, and Dennis says,
yeah, I'll buy stuff. I'll buy you lots of things. I'm definitely gonna buy a bunch of crack.
I just love that one to death as far as just the dialogue exchange. Soupy soup.
All right, you know what? Ultimate quote from the whole thing.
Okay, we'll just smoke a little bit.
A little bit.
Just enough to get into our system.
Yeah, and then we'll go to the doctor and we'll get all of our paperwork and we'll get full benefits.
And then we'll just collect for just a little while until we get settled, and then I'll take the MCATs.
And I'll move to New York.
We'll just smoke a little bit of crack.
Famous last words. I don't know if anybody's ever actually gotten away with saying that.
I don't think anybody's actually got away with doing that.
No, I don't know that anybody's actually.
You know what? Now, somebody might have gotten away with doing that, but one thing nobody ever got away with doing is like, hey, man, we'll smoke a little bit of this crack, and we'll save the rest for tomorrow.
Yeah, everyone always smokes the maximum amount of crack possible every time.
Yes,
all the time, hands down.
That's
Very good.
That's what it seems like. I think that's the point of. I think that's what it's supposed to do to you, man.
Man, that's what it's supposed to do.
Man, that's what it's supposed to do.
For $200 or better. And that brings us to our favorite scene or moment from Dennis and Dee Go on welfare. I am up first, and I kind of tried to hedge my bets here, but I have to go with the whole scene where Dennis and Dee are buying crack. The entire thing inside the Range Rover is just the absolute, just perfect mix of comedy and a little bit of cringe and a little bit of social commentary. I think it's just fucking perfect.
What you need?
One, please.
One what?
One rock of
one
crack.
crack.
A crack rock. Is that enough? Is one crack rock enough? See, I don't...
How much would you recommend for a first-time user?
Jamie G, favorite scene or moment?
For me, it's gotta be the welfare store. I can't not go to the welfare store. Like, it's just so good. There's so much going on in there. Yes, welfare store.
It's reserved for people who need it, okay? It's true, actually. Drug addicts, mentally disabled, people with dependents, that sort of thing.
We've got it covered, okay? Dee, your bicycle helmet.
Later, boners.
I really enjoyed that bathroom scene that's in your background right now, man. I mean, it's hard to top that one, dude. Just the entire exchange between everybody, and you almost forget that the lady is down there washing the fucking toilet at one point, and then you, oh yeah, she's still there, man. You know, I mean,
Do you want me to leave?
No, you're good. Just, you know what? Actually, make sure you really work that sponge in there, because otherwise, that stain, like,
It's not gonna get clean if you don't.
Yeah, it's gonna get worse.
Yeah, and then she gets a splash in the face because
she gets the spray, dude. Right, just to top it all off, man.
Bringing it back around, dude.
It's now time for us to find out who our 5-star man is, or woman, for Dennis and Dee Go on Welfare. This is when we rank the characters in the episode on a scale of 1 to 5 stars, with the first being the worst and 5 being the best. Mills, you're up first here, man. Hand out your stars.
I mean, I don't hand these out like Mario after 2 fire flowers, but I will be careful. 1 star, I'll give it to Mac. He got to party, but that's basically it. 2 star, welfare store lady. She's just the best. She absolutely kills here. 3 star, Frank. You know, I mean, Charlie did spend a bunch of his money, but Frank still is kind of the winner overall. I mean, he got him to lay the grout and all that. At number 4, drug dealer. Dude, he got $400 for 4 crack rocks. As far as I can tell, that is like the best, ROI. So shout out that. And, 5, Charlie, my 5-star man. He got to party. He stole Frank's money, and it got him promoted. I do not know how the fuck you beat that. So 1 Mac, 2 welfare store lady, 3 Frank, 4 drug dealer, 5 Charlie, Jamie G.
This was a tough one for me just because there were so many ways to go here, because you had, like, to your point, you had side characters, right? So that actually were involved in this. 1 for me is going to be Frank. I think he kind of, the only down thing about this episode for me is we don't get a ton of great Frank. So I'm putting him at the 1. He loses his money. 2, I'm going to go with, and this is really just a coin flip. I'm putting Dee at 2. She got addicted to crack, lost everything. I'm putting Dennis at 3. Dennis only has the edge here because he had the better lines and stuff. Although I will say Dee acting, as she suffered from a developmental disability was incredible, but I am going to give Dennis the edge there. 4, I'm giving it to the drug dealer, just like Mills. The dude made out, got a new client, grew his clientele, getting top dollar. That's living high on the hog for him. And 5, I also have to give it to Charlie. Charlie was the absolute man here.
Soup, 5-star people.
Yeah, man. All right. So, I am going to go ahead and bring in some of these one of these side characters to start out with, and I'm going to give it to the dealer for a number. I'm going to give him a 1 because it's nice to be able to, a lot of these episodes you're dealing with the 4 or 5 people at most. It's nice to have somebody else in there that you may or may not ever see again, but made an impact, even if it was just a scene or 2. So he's getting a number 1. Number two, giving number two to Dennis, man. I think he held a lot of the shit down. He carried the whole premise of the thing as far as him and Dee's aspect a pretty good way, dude. So I'm giving him a solid number two. I am giving Frank a number three, just for all the Frank shit that he does, and the way him just being Frank for this one, man. A lot of important shit in this episode with him as well. Number four, I am going with Dee because I think this is one of her better fucking episodes, honestly, man. Like, she crushed it in this one. Not that she doesn't always, but it was a little bit more impactful. I don't know. I really liked her in this episode. And obviously 5 is going to be Charlie because he just took the fucking taco on this whole fucking joint, dude. He's the only one that made out in the good, really, you know, at the end of the day. You know, so.
Charlie took the taco sounds like an awesome name for like a ska band in the late 90s.
Or maybe a future Sunny episode.
Hey, Charlie took the I mean, maybe there's a taco policy. We don't know about that.
It could be a taco policy.
It's not taco night, it's not taco Tuesday or Thursday, but we are trying to, create a little bit of a self-sustaining economy here. We don't have the Dave and Buster's infrastructure, but we're going to do our best anyways to break out our wallets and hand out some Patty's bucks to Dennis and Dee Go on welfare. What we do here is we grade each episode of Sunny on a scale of 1 to 100 Patty's bucks, with 1 being the worst, the D, and 100 being the absolute best. Jamie G, lead us off here. How many Patty's bucks are you giving to Dennis and Dee Go on welfare?
I'm pretty high here. I'm 93 Patty's bucks. This thing comes with a lot of cash circling around. This is a great episode of Sunny, for especially being that it's some of the earlier ones. It's kind of, my favorite seasons are like 6, 11. At 7, like, the kind of that range there. This is a really good episode, man, even though it's kind of early on in the show. 93.
I'm living in the same range as you. I definitely, I don't know. I came into this maybe thinking this was a possible top 5 episode. I don't think it's that, but it's certainly very entertaining. The highs are high. Again, I think the writing's a little bit fast and loose on how this can actually all pay off, but this is Sunny. I don't really care that much about kind of, background continuity or, feasibility or what have you. So I'll say 90 Patty's dollars. Pretty goddamn good. Right in the range I gave Charlie Gets Crippled. Right there. Solid A, baby. Solid A. Soup, give me some bucks.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm pretty high too, but not on crack. I'm pretty high with the numbers here, man. I'm pretty high with the numbers here. I'm going with like a 93.5 on this one, Patty's bucks, dude. I mean, it's definitely up there as one of those, like, like I said earlier, it's at least it's definitely a top 10er for me. So yeah, going for it, man. 93.5, dude.
I do think I would tune into Soup 93.5.
Yeah.
Yes, I would too.
Find that on your dial, baby. And speaking of trying to figure out where you're at, we're about to finally wrap up season 11. We're getting close. We're now ready to cover Frank Falls Out the Window, because we've covered Charlie Gets Crippled. Now we've covered Dee and Dennis Go on welfare, and hopefully that is going to add something to your enjoyment when we finally get to see Frank fall out the window because he's airing his ass out after eating a grilled Charlie.
Well, thank you guys for checking out Night Pod Cometh. We love doing these throwback episodes and hearing from other Sunny fans. Let us know particular episode you guys would like us to talk about it. We're there for it. Let us know in the comment section of this YouTube video or on our social media at Night Pod Cometh. Anything else you want to tell these people, Mills?
I think you did a very good job of laying all that down. Yes, thank you very much. This has been the Night Pod Cometh. I'm Magnum Mills with Jamie G, the Soupdeucer. Thank you again for checking us out and being a fighter for the Night Pod Cometh.
Oh.
This has been the Night Pod Cometh, presented by the Joe Blow Football Show. We are in no way associated with It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, 3 Arts Entertainment, RCG Productions, FXP, or FXX. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Any views or opinions expressed here are personal and do not represent those of people, institutions, or organizations who may or may not be associated with the Joe Blow Football Show. If you have any questions, please contact us at nightpodcometh@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. Please remember to like, subscribe, and comment.
My heart went down south, so please listen to the message that I sent. Don't ever choke to a girl who says she just has a friend.